Okay, so here we go. We're going to start our first lesson on indoctrination. You're my cat. Come up then if you want. Come on. So I think we can all now see the slideshow, and this is the question that we're looking at. Come on then. Much dystopian fiction presents a world where indoctrination is the most powerful means of controlling individuals. And then you'd be asked to compare the texts that we have studied and to give your answers. And if you have a tab with the planning grid open, then you might be able to see that you write your introduction and a conclusion, obviously, and then you're looking at kind of 3 main points to present in response to this. Okay. Can I remind you to chip in whenever you want, to put your hand up or just put something in the chat. But that's what we'll be looking at. And then after half term, we'll come back and we'll complete the plan because we'll be able to bring 1984 in. I feel confident that many of you could do that already, to be honest. Okay, so in case we're just not entirely sure what indoctrination means, we're thinking about persuasion. Brainwashing is like the common term for it, instruction, training, but it goes beyond just instruction. It's that bit there about teaching someone, training someone to accept a set of beliefs without questioning them. Basically the opposite of what should be going on in any classroom in the world. Could we start then by thinking about any current examples where you might be thinking about indoctrination, where you might have seen it? I hope you haven't experienced it. But could we maybe start with a few examples? So we're going straight in with North Korea. Excellent. We're going to have a look at some context from North Korea later on in the lesson. It's how we're kind of going to end things. Yeah, historically, we would go back to Nazi propaganda. What about it? Can you think of anything else, though? Maybe a little bit closer to home. And someone's got their hand up. But I can't. Rebecca.
Could you argue that, like, atheists might review religion as like a bit of indoctrination?
Yes, I think you could. I mean, I'm an atheist. I don't automatically think religious people are brainwashed.
Like the extremists?
Yeah. Well, Liliana's put in here terrorism and radicalisation. So, and cults, right, okay. So, the IRA, right. So what's the difference? What's the difference then between indoctrination and radicalisation? Hereditary. Is that a film? All right, I've not seen that. It looks too scary.
You don't want to see it.
No, I don't do scary films. Got a new keyboard so that I can stand up and down at my desk. Come on, any thoughts on that? Radicalisation is taken out of context. Right. I think I know what you mean, but can you just help me out with it a bit more? Taken out of context. It's some.
Julie, you've muted yourself.
Yeah, I've just realised that. Sorry. Don't even know how that happened. Could we think maybe, I don't know, about the aims? Are the aims of indoctrination the same as the aims of radicalisation? That might help us get towards an answer. Indoctrination is to gain or exploit power. Not disagreeing with that, Stephen. Liliana, go on.
I'm not sure if this is right, but like radicalization is more trying to get you to adopt the beliefs, and then indoctrination is like full brainwashing.
Yeah, you're right. Go on, there's a bit more. Think about. Okay, let me give an example of where we might start thinking about the difference. There's indoctrination in The Handmaid's Tale, that the handmaids are indoctrinated. Yes? Why? Why are they indoctrinated? And how is that different from someone being recruited into ISIS and radicalized? Go on, Liliana.
Again, I'm not sure if this is right, but is it because they like internalize the ideology and it's in everything they do?
Yeah, I love that. Internalize the ideology. That's a really good phrase. People might want to make a note of that. Lucy, you're saying something about choice there as well. Okay, so I want you to know there are two people, right? One is Offred, and she's been indoctrinated because they want her to do X. One is me, and I've been radicalized by the far right, okay, by QAnon, by what do they want us to do the same things? Both systems want Offred and myself to internalize and unquestionably accept what their way of thinking. But having accepted it, they want Offred to do X and they want me to do Y. Looks like people are typing. Anyone else got any thoughts? I think Oliver keeps getting kicked in and out with his Wi-Fi. Anybody? Do you want me to move on? Is this a bit hard? Megan, are you typing? No. Okay. Well, let's have a look back at our slideshow and let's see if that helps us get to that answer. I want you to have that in your head, the different outcomes that they want these individuals, myself and Offred. So let's think about where this happens then in The Handmaid's Tale. And we'll start with this quotation. Each month I watch for blood, fearfully, for when it comes, it means failure. I have failed once again to fulfill the expectations of others, which have become my own. So could you take a couple of minutes and think about how that is a good starting point for a discussion about indoctrination in The Handmaid's Tale? And if anyone would like to contribute some ideas, that would be good. I'm glad you can hear now, Nidhi. Did you have to leave the meeting and come back in? Sometimes I have to do that. Here Oliver's in and out like a yo-yo. Why is this a good starting point for us? So to have that quotation, that quotation on that slide that I've just read out, how can that help us start talking about indoctrination in the novel? Right, so Lee's a bit lost. Is that Hannah with the hand up?
Yeah. So if it's on about like a period,
It
then
is. She's talking about getting her period.
yeah. So then it's like women have been taught to suppress their femininity in the system. Like they've been told that the view of womanhood is more of a bad thing upon a good thing.
Almost. Maybe, do you know what, Hannah? Maybe this is a good time to just pause for a second and talk about some of the language with this. So you used the word femininity.
Yeah.
We could use the word woman. We could use the word female. So what's the difference between being female and being feminine?
Feminine is normally like an outward display or with identity, and then female is like
Female is your biological sex. Yeah. So that's how we determine our biological sex. Femininity might be more linked with our gender that we identify with and that we perform. You know, if you women in the class, these young women who I'm looking at, you know, are some of you more feminine than others? And what does that even mean? And why is that even valued? Yes, Stephen, and often femininity can be used as an insult for men when we, it's all about connotations and denotations, isn't it? So here we have a woman, Offred, who is fearful that she will get her period. And it's that last bit of the quotation that's important, isn't it? I have failed once again to fulfill the expectations of others, which have become my own. So she has internalized the view of society so that which has reduced her to a two-legged womb. And now she sees it as a sign of failure. Because if she fails, what's going to happen to her? And yes, Grace, it shows that they've dehumanized the handmaids. If she fails to get pregnant, what are the consequences? Anybody? She'll be an unwoman, and death is the ultimate consequence, isn't it? Because that's what happens when you're sent to the colonies. Okay, so to be so determined by your biological sex and then to accept that determinism is a form of indoctrination, isn't it? Yeah, so she'll lose her purpose. Okay, well, again, women shouldn't be defined by their biological purpose, and then having lost that, she will lose her value to society, and so she'll be removed from it. Okay. Right, I feel like I'm doing a lot of work here, guys. Come on, help me out. It's starting to make me feel like you don't know this book very well, and that some of you are winging it every week in terms of having read it or even reread it. Lee, does that make more sense now? Okay, so this is showing us an aspect of Offred and her indoctrination. Right. Now, let's have a think now, please. Yes, Grace, that's a good point. Let's have a think now, please, and let's have everyone contribute in here. What are the other methods that are used in the novel to indoctrinate women? Let's see everyone just quickly type in what is used to indoctrinate women and other members of society in Gilead. Right, Stephen straight in with the Bible, the hangings, the wall, the wings, job roles for status and limits. Right, so when Janine has to make her confession and be blamed for what happened to her. the ants. When you say the groupings, yeah, like the different, yeah, I know what you mean. That's interesting, Liliana, when they revisit history and how women were then and rewrite it almost. Okay, good. Any others? Has anyone said the Red Centre? That process of education. What's the one thing that they want Offred to do? Yeah, get pregnant. Right. Okay. So she's been indoctrinated to accept her position and get pregnant. I've been radicalized by the extreme right. What do they want me to do? Don't say have a baby. Any thoughts? Share those values, continue the ideology, support. Yeah, they want me to act. Now, how I act might, it could be a range of different things, right? They don't want Offred to act. They want her to be passive. They want her to be impregnated and then just let her body do its work of growing a baby. With me, they would want me to act, either by going into the classroom and, you know, sharing my right-wing ideological views there, just to get into other people's minds. That is yes, Laura, I think that's the difference. I mean, it's not something like I'm an expert on, but it would seem, because indoctrination, you could argue, is the first step, like before radicalization. But I feel like radicalization has an end goal that is active, whereas in a dystopian society, indoctrination is to keep people passive, to keep them quiet, subdued, accepting and conforming. Do you want to write that down, maybe? Make a couple of notes on that. I'm kind of glad we're recording this now, because we're going over some deep stuff, man. It's deep stuff. Time are we on? It's 12 already. How's that happened? Right. So what I'd like to do now is have a look at a bit of the text together. So we're going to look at chapter 43. But in true Julie style, as I was looking at chapter 43, I then went back and was looking at the end of chapter 42. I want to kind of start there because it hopefully is going to help you get to where I want you to be with this idea. And then I'm going to read. So I'm going to read to you, and I'm going to stop and kind of draw your attention to certain bits. And I just want to warn you that obviously there's potentially some stuff in here that's a bit upsetting. So if you do want to mute me and just read it yourself, and then, you know, you can watch it back later, I will understand. So at the end of chapter 42, we come to the actual the event. So we're looking at the end of chapter 42. And I'm starting right near the end where Aunt Lydia says, in the past. Okay. Oops. In the past, says Aunt Lydia, it has been the custom to precede the actual salvagings with a detailed account of the crimes of which prisoners stand convicted. However, we have found that such a public account, especially when televised, is invariably followed by a rash, if I may call it that, an outbreak I should say, of exactly similar crimes. So we have decided in the best interests of all to discontinue this practice. The salvagings will proceed without further ado. So that's interesting. There's something going on there about the power of language, which will be supported in what comes next. A collective murmur goes up from us. The crimes of others are a secret language among us. Through them, we show ourselves what we might be capable of after all. So this is a lovely bit to compare with that first quotation about the blood, because it suggests that she hasn't been fully indoctrinated. And that's what Atwood does. She peppers this novel with little bits of hope. But Aunt Lydia here has recognised that the power of her words, of her language, it can have that effect. So that's been stopped. Okay. Let's have a look then at the opening of 43 and just be kind of annotating with me, writing down notes, freezing in this attic. A bit of sympathy, please. The three bodies hang there, even with the white sacks over their heads looking curiously stretched, like chickens strung up by the necks in a meat shop window, like birds with their wings clipped, like flightless birds, wrecked angels. It's hard to take your eyes off them. Beneath the hems of the dresses, the feet dangle, 2 pairs of red shoes, 1 pair of blue. If it weren't for the ropes and the sacks, it could be a kind of dance. A ballet, caught by flash camera mid-air. They look arranged. They look like showbiz. It must have been Aunt Lydia who put the blue one in the middle. Today's salvaging is now concluded, Aunt Lydia announces into the mic. But we turn to her, listen to her, watch her. She has always known how to space her pauses. A ripple runs over us, a stir. Something else perhaps is going to happen. So straight away we can see how Aunt Lydia stage manages this event, how she has got the power and she's going to manipulate this group of women. But you may stand up and form a circle. She smiles down upon us, generous, munificent. She's about to give us something. Bestow. Orderly now. She's talking to us, to the handmaids. Some of the wives are leaving now, some of the daughters. Most of them stay, but they stay behind, out of the way. They watch merely. They are not part of the circle. 2 guardians have moved forward and are coiling up the thick rope, getting it out of the way. Others move the cushions. We are milling around now on the grass space in front of the stage, some jockeying for position at the front, next to the centre, many pushing just as hard to work their way to the middle where they will be shielded. It's a mistake to hang back too obviously in any group like this. It stamps you as lukewarm, lacking in zeal. There's an energy building here, a murmur, a tremor of readiness and anger. The body's tense, the eyes are brighter, as if aiming. So there's something here about collective participation. And we might start thinking about the 2 minutes hate in 1984. And not just that, but going to watch the public hangings when the prisoners are brought in on the trucks when he's with Julia. I don't want to be at the front or at the back either. I'm not sure what's coming, though I sense it won't be anything I want to see up close. But Ofgled has hold of my arm. She tugs me with her. And now we're in the second line, with only a thin hedge of bodies in front of us. I don't want to see, yet I don't pull back either. Despite everything I already know, I say to myself, they wouldn't go that far. Despite everything I already know, I say to myself, they wouldn't go that far. I want you to think about that. Think about indoctrination. Think about the idea of hope and humanity. You know the rules for a partisecution, Aunt Lydia says. You will wait until I blow the whistle. After that, what you do is up to you. Until I blow the whistle again, understood? A noise comes from among us, a formless assent. Well then, says Aunt Lydia. She nods. 2 guardians, not the same ones that have taken away the rope, come forward now from behind the stage. Between them they half carry, half drag a 3rd man. He too is in a guardian's uniform, but he has no hat on. and the uniform is dirty and torn. His face is cut and bruised, deep reddish-brown bruises. The flesh is swollen and knobby, stubbled with unshaven beard. This doesn't look like a face, but like an unknown vegetable, a mangled bulb or tuber, something that's grown wrong. Even from where I'm standing, I can smell him. He smells of shit and vomit. His hair is blonde and falls over his face. Spiky with what? Dried sweat? Look what's happening there. His identity has been completely erased. He doesn't look like a man. Now, is that because he doesn't look like a man? Or is that Offred already trying to separate herself, separate him, not see him as a man for what she knows she's about to have to do? I stare at him with revulsion. He looks drunk. He looks like a drunk that's been in a fight. Why have they brought a drunk in here? This man, says Aunt Lydia, has been convicted of rape. Her voice trembles with rage and a kind of triumph. He was once a guardian. He has disgraced his uniform. He has abused his position of trust. His partner in viciousness has already been shot. The penalty for rape, as you know, is death. Deuteronomy 22, chapters 23 to 29. I might add that this crime involved 2 of you and took place at gunpoint. This crime involved 2 of you. Bringing the handmaids into that. It was also brutal. I will not offend your ears with any details, except to say that one woman was pregnant and the baby died. A sigh goes up from us. Despite myself, I feel my hands clench. It is too much, this violation. The baby too, after what we go through. It's true, there is a bloodlust. I want to tear, gouge, rend. Right, a pretty powerful piece of writing there, I think you'll agree. Are we seeing Offred in a different light here? How can we use this to talk about indoctrination? Rebecca?
I think it shows that a bit of her like old self is still deep in her, even though she's like being indoctrinated, because she has to dehumanize the man before she beats him up so that she can actually beat him up and then not get punished for not beating him up.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rebecca. Thank you. Anybody else? No, nothing? Right, Grace. So the contrast there between blaming Janine at the Red Centre, but then using this as a way. I mean, what are they doing? What's the function of this partisecution? Anyone? Who's got their hand up there? Grace.
Could it be like trying to show them how lucky they are, in a sense that they've got these commanders who are really like, they're not like those men? And
it's a reminder, isn't it? It's a reminder of the old days.
yeah, and they're not around men like this anymore, so they should count themselves lucky that they're safe. And
yeah, that's right. What do you think they also recognise that these women need? It's the same as in 1984. Right, Hannah, thank you. Yeah, so they have, they need an outlet. And yes, Lucy, you definitely want to bring that quotation from freedom from, different to freedom to. 2 minutes hate. But if they're going to have an outlet for hate, then they're going to be in control of it. But what was I trying to get you to think about with the first bit that I read about these salvagings? What's the difference between what Aunt Lydia is doing there and then in the participation? In one, she doesn't do something, and in the other, she does, and both of it's about power. How does she encourage the violence? What does she use? It might be, you might be thinking it's too obvious, but we need to make sure that we all understand this. Anyone? What does she withhold at the salvaging? And what does she give in the participation? She mentions the baby and what happened. Right, so she gives the details of the crime. And in the first one, she says, I'm not going to tell you what the crime is, because then there's often a rash and outbreak of similar crimes. But here, I mean, do we think that this man committed this crime? Do we think that he raped a woman and caused her to lose her baby? No, we don't, do we? In fact, Ofglen, the reason she's dragged Offred in is because he's working for them, isn't he? For the Brotherhood. Sorry, not the Brotherhood, that's 1984. Get myself confused now. So she's using language to manipulate. And that's what I want you to understand, that the spectacle itself isn't enough. The bodies hanging on the wall are not enough. You've got to have more within it. Okay. This is how I would like to end today's lesson then, please. And then, so you're going to write up that little bit as a little power paragraph. And then we've got a couple of things just to finish off here, so we can look at this context tomorrow morning. And then I'll bring in this AO5. And then lesson 2, we're going to start thinking in more detail about whether Offred is or isn't indoctrinated. So to end the lesson, please, could you all just continue that sentence using as many, as detailed quotations as you can from the text. And I will see you tomorrow.